Good evening. You are viewing the Trinity channel, and I'm your host, C.L. Edwards, here tonight to discuss the recent debates. We just had a debate last night. How many of you took time to watch that? I know you've seen all the headlines and all the talk. We've also got an election coming up for American citizens to vote and express their right of choice. Who will you choose? Now, I'm not here to tell you who you should vote for, but continuing from last Thursday's show, what I hope to do with my guests is to lay out some principles and some truths to give you the weaponry you need, not literal, but figuratively, the weapons you need to be able to think for yourself, to reason for yourself, and to be able to make a logical, sound, reason-based decision for yourself. We've got excellent guests tonight. Here in the studio with me, I have my good friend Darwin Giles Jr. Now, in 2011, Darwin Giles was part of a mayoral campaign with duties including college campuses and community strategies. Darwin's career continued with involvement in 2 state campaigns and Genesee County prosecuting attorney campaign. He later worked for the Michigan United States Senate campaign. The most recent goals have been entering the political race for Michigan Republican Party ethnic vice chair, which you won.
Yeah, thank you.
Glory to God. And this is announced at the ongoing Onfits Tea Party meeting in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Our brother's involved in all types of things all across Michigan. He has his hands. Very knowledgeable, very outstanding young man with, 3 MBAs now?
No,
2.
just one. 3 business degrees.
3 business degrees, 1 MBA. Very educated, very knowledgeable. We also have via Skype, we have Dave Adjama. Dave, born on February 9th, 1949, as a politician from the U.S. state of Michigan, presently a member of the Republican National Committee and chairman of the Top Gun Republican Political Action Committee. He is a former member of the Michigan House of Representatives and formerly a commercial pilot for American Airlines. He's also a Vietnam veteran. He currently resides in Grandville, Michigan. And as always, we have Dave Adjama on the show from time to time, especially to discuss these type of matters because of the knowledge and the insight that he brings to these type of programs. But also, we also have via Skype Matt Slick. Matt Slick is the president and founder of Christian Apologetics Research Ministry, CARM. Matt earned his bachelor's in social science from Concordia University, Irvine, California in 1988. He earned his master's of divinity from Westminster Theological Seminary in California also in 1991. He now resides in Boise, Idaho with his family. He is ordained. Matt started CARM in October of 1995 to respond to many false teachings of cults on the internet. He's been on the internet since it was started, folks. We're glad to have Matt on the show. We're glad to have Darwin on the show. We're glad to have Dave on the show. Thank you very much for being a part of this program. So let's get into it. Let's get all the way into it. I know that our guests here have watched the debate last night. A lot of different various debate topics were talked about. There's a lot of buzz in the media and the internet about who won the debate versus who lost the debate. A lot of sound clips going on, who had a gaffe, who misspoke, and blah, 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 blah. All the stuff you hear in the mainstream media. Meantime, while everybody's talking about that, there's some very serious things going on in the world. Unfortunately, our American media hasn't touched or spoken about. The whole entire 2 weeks while everyone was paying attention to what supposedly Mr. Trump did on an airplane with someone or in an interview with Billy Bush or whoever Billy Bush is supposed to be, there have been all types of things going on in Syria. Aleppo is out of control. Russia is making power moves. Iran is making power moves. Alliances are being formed. Alliances are being cut. God help us if we're on the verge of World War III. Hate to be alarmist, but we have to be serious about these topics. So let me turn to my in-studio guest, Darwin. Were you able to actually catch the debate last night?
Yes, I was. I
You
was
were
able to catch it.
so
Fortunately.
fortunately, yes, fortunately. In general, what did you think about the debates? What did you think about the performance of Trump, and what did you think about the performance of Hillary Clinton?
Well, overall, I believe both candidates did pretty good. I think they both made it out alive, obviously. But more importantly, I noticed what principles are being stood on that Donald Trump is stating versus the controversy surrounding him that I believe is the least important concerning the more important principles that he's standing up for, whether it be being pro-life, making sure conservative judges are going to be appointed to the Supreme Court, whether it be standing for the Second Amendment, things that make our country great. He's standing for those principles, whereas a lot of things I heard from Hillary Clinton just seems socialist to me. So I don't believe a lot of what she says. She is special interest, and obviously, and I know for a fact, she clearly is the puppet, giving that if you can be purchased as a politician, you're the puppet. And so one of the main things that I support about Trump is the fact that he's going in self-sufficient. He doesn't need special interests. And because he doesn't need special interests, I take heed to that because that is very, very important. Nearly every politician we send to D.C. or even here locally in Michigan, being I'm the ethnic vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party, or we send to Lansing, if they're not self-sufficient, they get bought out generally. That's how this works. And so therefore, I pay very, very close attention to the principles versus the politics or even the personality of a person. Okay. And I think that's very, very important. And I think this election is going to be based on a more higher intellect concerning the voter turnout and when they choose and being educated on issues more than when Barack Obama was elected previously. Mm-hmm. I think that those campaigns you could get by off of a technical term or technicality, so to speak, or a slogan, popular slogan. I don't think this election is going to be based on that. Giving Benghazi and so many other things, I think people are going to go in pretty educated. I think they're going to Google and research and go to libraries, and they're having debates in universities. And I think a lot of people have heard the issues, and that the last debate was a good example of it, than just a normal political election. So I think this is going to be a little bit different.
I think you're right about that, but I also think that a lot of people, it's had the exact opposite effect. That a lot of people are actually checking out. They feel like they're overwhelmed and they're confused and they don't know who to vote for or who to believe or what reports to believe, and they're basically done with the whole thing.
And that's why they watch our show.
That's why they watch our show.
They will get informed,
exactly.
And they will find out exactly who they should vote for, and based on the issues. Being completely objective in dealing with the issues.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Dave Ejima, let me ask you a question. I'm sure you, first of all, did you watch the debate last night?
I watched the whole thing.
Watched the whole thing. So let me ask you this question. Just based on what I was just discussing with Darwin, what effect do you think the coverage has been on the American public for the last few weeks? Is it the coverage that we've seen, which to me, in my opinion, seems very slighted against Trump, and not that I'm on the Trump train, I'm just giving my honest opinion looking at the coverage. Do you think this is going to have the effect of stirring up the American public to get out to vote for whoever their candidate is, or is it going to have the effect of putting a wet blanket on the American public? People are going to check out. People are going to decide, I don't care who gets elected. I want this to be over with. I'm just not going to vote. How do you see that?
The things going on there. Just ask. By the way, I don't know if you can stop. Tell you what's going on. You got about 6 million people that are not in the workforce. Okay, so people tend to vote for whoever's going to give them something, and that's obviously Hillary. You've got more people on welfare than ever before. So what you have happening now is you have Hillary, which is promising free education, free everything. You have CNN, ABC, and MSNBC, and so forth, basically pushing for Hillary. And some of the people that have either worked for them in very high-ranking positions have people working for Hillary's campaign, either a brother, a sister, or a sibling, or a husband or wife, and so forth. So there's definitely been a skew there of information. Is that going to affect things? Yes, I think it will affect things. However, the popularity of Trump has been, he tells it like it is, and it's refreshing to people. The question is, will the people look at substance, or will they look at the heartfelt things that Hillary likes to use? For example, when I minored in speech, there's two parts to that speech. There's the content and there's a presentation. Now, Hillary's a lawyer. She knows how to present a case. Then there's the content, which in my opinion, she's very weak on. So in that debate yesterday, I heard a lot of content more on Trump's side than I did Hillary. And quite frankly, she did a really good job of kind of flipping over to something else she wanted to talk about when particular questions were answered. But I do think the media is going to play a role in this. And I don't like the role they're playing. I wish they just report the facts and not interject all their talking points and who think they won the election and so forth. Just report the facts. So I'm a little hesitant to say, of course, I would say based on me, because I'm a pilot, former pilot, military officer, I look at facts. I don't care how you present them, really. I just want the facts. And Hillary's always been weak on facts. She always tried to go for the heart, talk about some kid that's hurt or her foundation, which she says gives to all these kids when in fact it doesn't. And those kind of things kind of hit the heartstring. But getting back to my original point, you have too many people in the United States that are taking some form of a check from the government. And that number is too great. And as that number approaches 50%, we're really close there now. Many of those people will vote for the wallet, whoever will give them the most. And that's why socialist countries fail. And Darwin, what he says is exactly correct. We have a choice between two directions, capitalism versus socialism. Trump, capitalism, socialism, Hillary.
Thank you for those wise words.
And I would like to point out, too, when you look at socialism versus capitalism, just so the mass public can understand, there is a difference between capitalism and crony capitalism.
Yes.
One is crony capitalism, and in that state, false accusations or past accusations are being said against Trump. But what Trump has promised and campaigned on is to turn that around, to go against the status quo, to go against the lobby, to go against special interests. So those who are against crony capitalism and understands free markets, they understand what Trump is actually saying. They understand the language. So it's our job to make sure we hold him accountable to those things. It's very important. Very, very important.
I agree with you. Now, turning to Matt Slick, there's a lot of talk about evangelicals, what direction evangelicals are going to go into, what effect they're going to have, how do they really feel about Trump. I'm looking at a report here, trending on Facebook tonight is Wayne Grudem. Everybody in evangelical circles, they've heard of Wayne Grudem and his systematic theology. At one point, he gave support to Trump, and then at another point, when some of the allegations started coming out, he took his support back from Trump. Now he's put out a apologetic for Trump, and he's giving his throwing his hat towards Trump again. It seems like a lot of people are confused. A lot of Christians are confused about what they should do, who they should cast their vote for, and they look to evangelical leaders. And when you have an evangelical leader like the lights of Wayne Grudem, who seems to be changing his mind 3 times at this point, what are Christians supposed to think? What are the principles that Christians should be using to decide how or if they're even going to vote? And from your standpoint, pastors, theologians, professors at colleges, presidents of Christian colleges, how far should they go in endorsing a candidate?
Well, I think the idea of endorsing candidates is extremely biblical. I think that we ought to consider that the churches need to start teaching from the pulpit what the issues are politically. We don't realize, a lot of people don't know that there were a lot of ministers who would preach on Sunday back in the Revolutionary War, and then they would go get their muskets and go fight in the Revolutionary War. We have the obligation of righteousness. We have the obligation of trying to deny the oppressive governments that can arise. Now, what I'm concerned about among a candidate is constitutional fidelity, as well as religious freedoms. We're losing both. The Clinton wants an increase in socialism and federal oversight of everything, where the Constitution itself talks about the necessity of states being able to make certain decisions. And the constitutional fathers set this up because they knew that the federal government could become oppressive, and it is becoming oppressive. And so with these two main things, I want to know about constitutional fidelity, which I don't believe that Obama does, and I certainly don't believe Clinton does. I don't know about Trump. I haven't studied him on that issue, but he seems to be more in favor of states' rights. Then there's an issue of religious freedom. Now, I've seen Hillary say that she needs, or what needs to happen in America is religious views need to change. That's not her business. It's not her business as a politician to say which religious views need to change. If anything, it's the responsibility of the Christians to get her views to change and become more biblical.
Amen.
And then in the sub areas of this religious freedom, we need to focus on such things as abortion and homosexuality, along with the religious freedom of the churches and things like that. Abortion is the issue of killing, and it's the issue of human value. And then the homosexuality deals with the issue of the very fabric of our society, the family. So I want to know what they're going to be saying about these things. And I'll make my decisions on who to vote for based on these kind of things. And Christians need to do that as well. Don't listen to sound bites. Don't listen to the leftist Marxist media side with one person and unfairly treat them in moderated the first two debates, unfairly treat one candidate over another. So we Christians need to become more educated, and I believe the pastors need to be speaking about this from the pulpit. Don't worry about your 501c3 nonprofit status. It's our business to speak truth, and we need to say it.
I like him. I like Matt.
Good word, good word, good word. Speaking on abortion, there was a back and forth between Trump and Hillary last night on the issue of abortion. Trump steered the conversation towards the issue of late-term abortions, which Hillary Clinton has expressed in the past and during the debate that she doesn't have any problem with late-term or abortion, period. But Hillary Clinton she's made it perfectly clear that she has no problem with abortion, and she does not have a problem with late-term abortion. So I want to get from all three of you guys, since all three of you watched the debate, what did you think of her comments regarding abortion in general and late-term abortions in particular? I'm going to give it to our in the studio brother Darwin to speak on that.
No problem, my brother. First, be healed in Jesus' name, my
Amen.
brother. So we claim that now. But more importantly, also, in addition to that, being from Flint, Michigan, nobody else understands the culture of abortion, I think, more than myself. I understand, I've heard the stories, I've come from this culture of abortion, so I know better than anybody else about the issue of abortion. These are decisions that, from what I have experienced, most women regret that decision. Mm-hmm. Okay, they regret it. They regret it for the rest of their lives, and it's something that the Lord has to honestly, supernaturally heal. And so this is a terrible thing for our country to embrace. It's a terrible thing, and judgment will fall on our country for this in a variety of different ways. But the fact that a politician can actually hold any type of moral ground against one candidate or her opposing candidate, for whatever reason, when she can be for late-term abortion, it's just beyond hypocritical. It's evil. It's wrong, and I think she loses all credibility at that point. She did pivot pretty good around the questions, Hillary Clinton, during the debate. I think more importantly, she dodged the real nature of, and the real graphic nature of what happens during a late-term abortion. So I think more importantly, this has to be really addressed, and I pray that the American people, seeing that and visually understood what that actually is going to look like, what that is. You know, I don't know if they can actually experience that, but do the research. Really speak to some individuals who have went through this, and I guarantee you will not come out in support of late-term abortions. Not with any type of good or godly conscience.
Thank you very much. And you're right. The actual procedure of the late-term abortion is something out of almost like a horror movie.
Correct.
Where you're. I was just speaking to someone earlier today, a very adamant Clinton supporter, where I tried to explain to them, now that baby comes fully out of the womb. According to Hillary, it has constitutional rights at that point.
Correct.
But if you can induce the pregnancy, but make sure the baby doesn't fully come out, the baby's head is still in the womb, according to Hillary, that human being doesn't have any constitutional rights.
Correct.
And the doctor can now take an instrument and snip that baby's brain stem.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen the graphics of this. I've seen it on YouTube and the internet, and it is beyond anything that being humane that you can support as a nation and as a society. And I think we really need to focus more on the victims.
Yes.
And I think Donald Trump hit the nail on the head when he said that the institutions would be penalized, not the actual victims. That's a very good point that needs to be pointed out. He said the institutions,
Yes.
not the victims.
Yes.
So that is something very important that needs to be stated.
Yes. Throwing the question to Dave, we're speaking about some of Hillary Clinton's statements and positions on abortion in general and late-term abortion in particular. What are your views and positions on that as far as what Hillary has said?
Well, let's go back. Our forefathers based our Constitution on principles. Okay? What's the Bible say about a child? When Jesus' mother ran to John the Baptist's mother, the baby leapt within her in the womb because the baby was filled with the Holy Spirit before the baby was even born. So that is a soul. That's a person. So for Hillary to do what she's doing, to me, is anathema to Christianity. More African-American babies are now being killed than are being born. And that was the goal originally of abortion, Planned Parenthood, and so forth. So they're just trying to take out a race, in their terms, an inferior race, which is a bunch of baloney. But Jarwin Giles is a good example. He's got more degrees than I do. So what I'm trying to say is Hillary Clinton stands for what we should be against as Christians. We should be against Planned Parenthood. We should be against abortion. And when she's willing to go the day of the birth and kill that child, that's murder. And the state of Michigan and others have stated what they thought abortion should be. What is not mentioned in the Constitution, which our forefathers understood to be right and wrong, is given to the states. Our state and other states are, I think, and still would be against abortion. So I think she's way out in the weeds. She's been out in the weeds, but she wants that percentage of liberals that will vote for her if she stands up for Planned Parenthood and abortion. They think that's their right to kill their own unborn. To me, you're killing your own baby. It's wrong. Simply wrong. It's not Christian.
Very wrong. I would agree with you. Now, we're coming up on a hard break, but before we go to break, because Matt Slick is not going to be with us for the second half of the program, is it okay if I get Matt Slick's answer in? We can get him in real quickly. Matt, I'm going to toss the ball to you. We're discussing Hillary Clinton and her positions and her statements about abortion and late-term abortions. Go ahead with your answer.
Well, Jesus says in Matthew 12:34, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. She speaks about the validity and the moral acceptance of killing babies in the womb. And will simply say this atrocious logic, the position of the baby in the womb or out of the womb is what gives it human value. Now, this kind of thinking is horrendously bad and morally corrupt. It is nothing more than simple evil. This means out of her heart, she is speaking evil. What else is she going to be holding to besides this atrocity of death that has become part of our culture, especially the issue of late terms? Any abortion, we could talk about abortion a lot, but this issue of late term abortion is particularly reprehensible. And the fact that our culture does not rise up in arms against its leadership that would support such atrocities is a sad commentary on the spiritual, moral decay that is occurring not only in our culture, but in our churches. What she wants and what she's advocating, what all would advocate with late-term abortions, is nothing short of an evil act of murder upon babies that just an hour before cesarean, they'd have been born, lived, no problem. But simply because the position, in or out of the womb, they have or don't have value, it's evil. And how could we support anybody who would support evil?
Amen.
Strong word, and I hope Christians who are viewing this and listening will take that in heed when they decide how are they going to vote in the next few days. Now, like I said, we're coming up on a hard break. We're going to take a break, but the show will continue. We have another half an hour. We're going to keep discussing these issues and more. So keep tuning in. We'll be right back. This is CL. You're watching the Trinity Channel. Welcome back. You are viewing the Trinity Channel, and I'm your host tonight, C.L. Edwards. We've been having an incredible, deep conversation regarding the debates that have been going on, the debate we just had last night. We've gone further than the mainstream media will take you. We've gotten deep into some of the issues. We're just having a very profound discussion about abortion and late-term abortion, an evil act of murder against a human being, and the position of the candidates that are up for election in the next few days that you will have to go out and vote for if you're living in America, of course. Let me just read you some quick quotes from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton said, this is from Google, January 6, 2016, earlier this year, the beginning of this year actually, politicians have no business interfering with women's personal health decisions. I will oppose efforts to roll back women's access to reproductive health care, including Republican efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. As president, I'll stand up for Planned Parenthood and women's access to critical health services, including safe, legal abortion. Another statement, which is attributed to a article in Newsday. This is from June 10th, 2016. Very shortly, she says, Clinton responded, I've been proud to stand with Planned Parenthood for a long time, and as president, I will always have your back. So I'm not telling anyone who to vote for, but I'm giving you just some facts. As a Christian, if you're a Christian, and even if you're a Muslim out there, you just happen to be tuning in this show, if you're a Jew, if you're a person of faith, whatever faith it is, can you honestly say that you can vote for an individual who would make these types of statements? If you vote for Hillary Clinton, not telling you should or you shouldn't, but if you vote for this person, know that you're voting for someone who says that she has Planned Parenthood's back fully. Just understand that. Dave Agema, Mr. Agema, we still have you on the show. Matt Slick, he was with us for our first half, gave some great answers, and we are very thankful that he could be in the first segment of our show. But our brother Dave, we've had some real strong statements. Were there any issues that were not brought up in the debate last night that you wish would have been brought up? And also, what do you think was the main highlight as far as issue? What was the biggest issue discussed last night in the debate with Trump and Clinton?
Well, there were many. I don't even know where to start. Obviously, the abortion for Christians should be a big issue. But being a former military person, that's a big issue for me too. Under Obama and Hillary, the military has been just emasculated. Political correctness runs amok. It's a social experiment going on with the LGBT groups and so forth. They're even paying for people to have sex change in the military. This is nuts. And I tell you, the morale is down the tubes in the military, especially when Hillary, because of Benghazi and other things, if she gets to be president, the men in the military don't know what she's going to do or what she's not going to do. I mean, as a military guy, if you're down and you're hurt, you want to be taken out, you want to be helped. I'm not sure that's going to happen under Hillary because everything, all of her decisions are based on politics and what it does for her. One of my biggest issues has always been, and Darwin knows this well, since 2006 when I ran for office, was immigration. Because I saw what it did. I used to haul, if not hundreds or thousands of illegals from San Diego to Chicago before all 9/11 hit. And I saw how many people were coming into this country. Now that we know about ISIS and they have promised to use the refugee program and the illegal immigration and so forth to come across our borders, it's a huge issue, folks. It was three-star General Boykin told me that 80% of the people crossing our southern border that are not Hispanic are coming from Muslim countries. Mm-hmm. And we don't catch that many of them. So what does that tell me? Our southern border is porous. They're coming through like crazy. And we know all about civilization jihad. That was another program. We got into that a great deal. They're basically going to try to take this country over from within. So the immigration issue alone, I think Trump should have just hammered home day and night. She wants open borders. She wants to let anybody come in. When you don't have open borders, you don't have a country. And if you want to know what it's going to look like, look at Europe. They have open borders. What's going on in Belgium? What's going on in England? What's going on in France? It's just total chaos in that area of the country. It's coming here, folks. It's already here, folks. And according to Kamal Salim, my good friend, said that ISIS is in every state of the Union. So immigration to me is a huge issue. I'd like to have seen Trump hammer her a little bit more on immigration. And I'd like to see her hammer just a little bit more on the use of military and the fact that you should let the military people decide how to fight a war. We have not fought a war to win since the Vietnam War. I mean, even in the Vietnam War, the rules of engagement were ridiculous. The rules of engagement in Iraq were ridiculous. They're still ridiculous. Our troops, your sons and daughters, their lives are in great danger because they have to abide by rules of engagement instituted by ignorant politicians. Listen to your commanders. The problem with that now is Hillary and Obama have obliterated the senior general ranks because they have taken out people that don't agree with them and put in yes people, so they do whatever they're told or they lose their job. 200 or 300 generals have quit because they said they cannot abide by what Hillary and Obama are doing. So, folks, we're just at a turning point in this country. We're going to go right or we're going to go left. And I think the other thing I'd say is probably that needed to be emphasized was pretty good, pretty well emphasized, was the Supreme Court. That was just telling to me. When Hillary said, I want basically progressive judges and they're going to reinterpret the Constitution. And Trump said, no, we're going to interpret the Constitution the way it was intended. That is huge, folks. She is going to put Supreme Court justices in positions where they will reinterpret the Constitution and make it what they call a living, breathing document to change. That is exactly what our forefathers told us and warned us about. That is what Hillary's going to do. Trump, on the other hand, says we're going to abide by what it said. Those 3, 4, 5 justices the next president puts in can harm or do good for our country for the next 40 years. For Christians out there, you ought to be afraid of this one more than anything else that was said. Watch who she wants to put in as judges.
Wow. Wow. Good word. Good word. A lot of things to think about. So many different issues to think about.
That's the edge of my home run right there.
Amen. Amen. There's just so many issues in this election. I don't know how any Christian, now I'm not speaking to everyone, I'm speaking to Christians. I don't know how you can say, well, I'm just going to stay home and I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to be a part of this. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. It's not too much. It's not too overwhelming. There's serious issues, and you need to cast your vote. You need to be a part of the process for my Christians who are living in America. Pivoting to our in-studio guest, Darwin, same basic question. You got a chance to watch the debates.
Correct.
What do you think were some of the highlights, and was there anything that you wish would have been spoken about that wasn't spoken about by either candidate?
Well, what I do believe is I think Trump is going to have a phenomenal commercial ad finale is what I think as we count down towards the initial day. So I think he's holding some of his aces, ace of spades. I think he's holding out on some things. The debates got in a lot of information. I think he has a very smart team. I mean, understanding Trump is very skilled in PR and media. And I think he's going to really hit some things home. In fact, he criticized Mitt Romney when he ran, stating that he's going to have to have a serious commercial ad game. And of course, I mean, I don't think he did because he obviously lost the election. But I think Trump is going to be much better, and I think he's going to do things different. So he's going to detail a lot of the critical issues that I think I personally want to see more in ads. And I think that's the best way, because the other side has to scramble to try to react. But by that time, millions and millions of people have heard the truth. Debates, as you stated, and as I believe it was Matt stated as well, the first two debates were very rigged. I know they don't want Trump to say it's rigged, but it was. I mean, you can deny it all you want. Anytime the media and these moderators are already knowing they're setting him up or they're trying to sabotage instead of having neutral candidates, you're rigging the system. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so in a sense, I mean, I really support, again, I know the culture of abortion coming from the inner city. I know how Planned Parenthood will bring you in by birth control because they offer free birth control. But really, eventually, that is only set up to reel you in to get you to have an abortion later or some other type of thing, and maybe multiple abortions. You know, I have family members who teenagers have had 2, 3, or more abortions before they're 25 years old. Okay, so it's touching on life is very important, very critical. I love to hear the Second Amendment, as I stated. I think you just cannot protect your home, your family, your property without the Second Amendment. And there are certain places in the inner city where you cannot have the police come to you on time. So you have to be able to protect yourself. But I also would have wanted to see more support for Israel and for them to directly talk about their stance and support for Israel. You know, and I'm going to also say this, and I'm going to criticize the entire political system and even our own country to a large extent as far as the leadership who's failed to understand what I'm about to say. Israel has dealt with our enemies for a very, very long time. They're experienced with conquering and winning in that area. Every war Israel has ever fought, they won. Why have we not directly dealt with and initiated a lot of the things that's worked successfully in Israel? Why don't we have more of a stronger alliance so that we can overcome and defeat this radical jihadist culture that they're trying to establish through their own puppet politicians, being Hillary Clinton or whoever else? And that includes, unfortunately, a lot of the past donations and things that even Trump as a business person did. You know, if you're going to criticize Hillary, you got to criticize Trump for the same thing if there was in the past. But currently, that's not Trump now. So for that, we're starting fresh. And we're going to hold his foot to the fire of being against the status quo and corruption. But we have to use Israel more. We just have to. Without Israel, our country is going to fail without actually having the correct intel of being able to understand this. Because I don't know if America, without God's help and without our allies, our real allies, even spiritually, can overcome this. We're at a very standstill. And so our trust and hope has to be in the Lord.
Yes, our hope has to be in the Lord. It seems like I'm not going to bash anyone, but it seems like ever since President Obama came into office, there's been a radical shift in the administration's attitude towards Israel. even to the point of putting forth a cold shoulder to Israel, disrespect towards Israel, while at the same time offering hands of friendship to people like Iran,
Muslim Brotherhood.
the Muslim Brotherhood. And Dave mentioned civilization jihad, which some people try to say is a conspiracy theory. My research shows that it indeed is not a conspiracy theory. It's a real thing put forth and being executed by the Muslim Brotherhood. And if you don't know, you can do a Google search to see about Hillary Clinton and some of her staff members' connection with the Muslim Brotherhood. That's another thing you need to think about when you go into that election booth in the next few days. When you cast that vote, are you voting for someone who is going to stand with Israel as a partner and an ally, or someone who's going to continue the last 8 years of Obama giving the cold shoulder to Israel while extending that hand of friendship, more than a hand of friendship, giving payoffs to Iran, the largest state sponsor of terrorist organizations in the world? Now let me get off my soapbox and return to the guests. Mr. Dave Ejima,
Yes.
while we're on this topic of Israel and Iran and all this, well, the last few weeks, according to the mainstream media, the biggest story that's been going on was whether Trump groped a woman on an airplane, or what he said with Billy Bush on a videotape, and everyone was paying attention to that. But there have been a lot of things happening internationally, especially with the military, and we know you have a military background. We see things ramping up in Aleppo in northern Syria. We see Russia making some very hard power moves along with their allies in Syria, Bashar Assad and Iran. What I've read, that they're moving warships at this moment into Syria, into the area of Syria. Just recently, there was a bombing, a airstrike from Turkey against some rebels in Syria. Syria responded by saying if Turkey returns back into their airspace, they're going to shoot down their planes. I would have liked to have saw the candidates talk about that more. I know Trump tried to push that, but Hillary, she did her pivot. How important is foreign policy when it comes to deciding who to vote for in this coming election, in your view?
Well, to have foreign policy, you have to have a policy. I'm not sure Hillary and Obama have a policy. I mean, they tell the enemy when we're going in, they tell the enemy when we're leaving, they tell them how we're going to fight, and they just wait. That's what created ISIS, if you will, the vacuum that we created. But can I go back just a minute? When he was talking about Israel, what's the Bible say? Those that bless my people, I will bless. Those that curse, I will curse. I never want to be on the wrong side of Israel. They're a nation now. They're never not going to become a nation. That's what the Bible says. So in 2012, I think it was, I was invited to go to Israel. And while I was there, I visited General Jacoby, head of their F-16 Air Force there, and I had dinner with him. And I asked him a couple questions. We did the typical thing. And finally I said, what do you think of Obama? And there was silence for a moment because I was there with one other state rep. And I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was trying to think, how can I answer this question? And then he said, I think it's good. I said, what's good? He said, well, I think it's good because we realize now that we can't depend on America. We have to depend on ourselves. That is a sad state, folks, for America. They are our only republic/democracy in the Middle East, and we're dumping on them. And Obama has said if push comes to shove, he's going to side with the Muslims. Amazing to me, just simply amazing to me. On the other issue, every time Obama, or Bill Clinton years ago got caught with his pants down, literally, he was sending the military somewhere to take the what was going on with him, the attention away from him, onto somewhere else in the world. I think that's what's going on right now in the Middle East. As this election comes up, they're trying to create a crisis. Never let a crisis go to waste is kind of a Democrat ploy. So they're ramping this up. What they don't understand is if they, for example, like Hillary said last night, let's just have no-fly zones. Well, what are you going to do when a Russian airplane flies in there? You're going to shoot it down? If you do, you just started a war. That's what she's going to do. They're going to try to cause a crisis to take the people's attention away from the real issues. Now, the real issues, yes, it's somewhat of an issue to talk about what Trump did 11 years ago. But we can talk what the Clintons have done for the last 40 years, of which none of it is good. And they have done, which they accuse Trump of saying. There's a big difference between saying and doing, and they've done it. So, I mean, I just sat there and I looked at this whole thing last night, and the people that are gullible, that don't know, are going to believe what they hear from a liberal media. People that search out these things will find out that from the Clinton's Foundation to Benghazi to other things that she's said and done. You talked about abortion, talk about ISIS, and every time, by the way, Obama or Hillary says ISIL, I want to punch their lights out. And I'll tell you why. ISIL means Islamic State in Libya. What does that mean? That means we don't recognize Israel. So just going to what Darwin said, he's telling the world, I don't recognize Israel. It's Islamic State in Syria. If they say ISIS, punch his lights out. Because he's sending a message to the Middle East, we don't recognize Israel. Just amazing to me that the ignorance of the people in the United States don't see and understand these things. I post these things. I know Darwin posts these things. But people need to hear it, and they need to understand the importance what Obama and Hillary are sending messages to these Muslim countries that want to destroy this country, the little Satan, Israel, the big Satan, America.
Amen. Now, we still have some more show to go. Still have some more discussion, more topics to dig into. It's not over with yet. But we're going to take a hard break, and we're going to be back in a moment. So go get something to drink, get back to your computer or your TV set, and get ready for some more. Trinity Channel, this is your host, C.L. Edwards. Good evening, and we are back for the final segment of our show. You're tuning in to the Trinity Channel, and I'm your host tonight, C.L. Edwards. And we've had a great show so far. We've got down deep into some of the most important issues that affect America this particular election cycle. We've talked about some of the statements and positions of the main candidates and the party positions on these. We talked about abortion, we've talked about foreign policy, and we're continuing on. We have a new on-set in-studio guest with us, and that is Clint Kistel. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for being here.
And discuss these hot topics that truly and really are hot now that the debate, third and final debate, just finished. So
Yes,
it's exciting.
sir. Yes, sir. And just to give a little background to the audience real quickly, Clint is a state representative, first elected to serve the 39th District of the Michigan House of Representatives in November 2012. He's a representative and resident of the city of Whitsom, also for Commerce Township and a portion of West Bloomfield Township in the village of Wolverine Lake. He's also up for re-election this term. Kesto serves as the chair of the Committee on Judiciary, and he's also a member of the Committee on Elections, Health Policy, and Regulation Reform. Educated graduate of Wayne State University Law School, graduating in 2006. Professionally, Clint served for more than 5 years as a prosecuting attorney with the Wayne State Prosecutor's Office. And we're glad to have someone of your stature and knowledge and insight on the show to discuss these topics with us. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate our audience, to give them, to cut through all the rhetoric, to cut through all the sensational headlines that have been going up for the last few weeks, to get down to actual issues and policy, to find out for themselves, they can make a decision for themselves. Who should I be voting for? Who should I cast my vote for? And we just got done discussing foreign policy. And I'm sure you're aware of how serious things are getting overseas, ramping up in northern Iraq and Syria with ISIS various rebel groups, Russia, Syria, Bashar, Iran looming over and influencing. From your standpoint, for the voters out here, and for your constituents, as you advise them, when they go to vote in the next coming days, how important is foreign policy? And how do you see the standpoint? How will Hillary approach the issue of foreign policy versus Trump, in your view?
Well, first off, foreign policy is one of the most important issues, and that's why they talk about it. And just looking at the debate yesterday, and it's interesting, you know, I represent Commerce Township, West Bloomfield, Wixom, Wolverine Lake in Michigan, in the state of Michigan. I'm a Republican. I'm in my second term, running for my third term. And it's interesting when you look at the dynamics, especially when it comes to partisan politics. And you had Chris Wallace, a great reporter, a great moderator, did a phenomenal job in terms of one thing, and that's getting to the issues and the substance and what the candidates have said and what they didn't say. Mm-hmm. If you look at the previous two debates, those moderators that came from different news networks, mm-hmm. and we saw where the bias was. But it was fortunate and refreshing to see an actual debate where you could get into the policies. And talking about foreign policy, let's look at what we have going on. Foreign policy has different facets and different ways you can look at it. Number one, first of all, what about jobs? Mm-hmm. And you hear and you see and you feel that the jobs have gone out to other countries, whether it be Mexico, China, Asia, and we're losing jobs. And we're a country that makes things, and we've lost that. Mm-hmm. We're starting to get it back because of our own ingenuity and our own way of being innovative, but it's not to the way that we should be. We should be self-reliant. Look at the other thing. What about security? Mm-hmm. Foreign policy in terms of security. There is chaos going on in the Middle East and in other areas. Our country is not as respected as it should be, whether it be from the Europeans, from Putin, from North Korea, certainly from Iran, and frankly, we're brokering bad deals with Iran.
Tell me about it.
That is sponsoring terrorist organizations. You have ISIS that continues to grow. It continues to cause chaos across the Middle East. And what we're doing, what are we doing? It's just talking about it and that's it. We need action. We need action in this election. We need action for the people of our great country. We need action for the people across the world so that they can feel safe, that they can feel what freedom is. And we're that beacon of light of freedom. The third thing is our own national security and the infiltration in terms of foreign policy and who comes into our borders. That's the other thing. And the last thing is self-reliance. What are we doing in terms of being self-reliant in manufacturing and energy? Mm-hmm. And when you look at the policies of the two candidates, they're vastly different. Vastly different. One believes in open borders. One believes in all, the trade agreements that are currently out there that are bad for our country. Mm-hmm. One believes in taking away certain energy policies that we have today that allow us to be self-sustainable, self-reliant, and keeping costs low. And the other one says, wait a minute, it's about America. It's about Americans. It's about bringing jobs to Americans. It's about creating jobs within America. It's about saving dollars and cents to the American people. And that's kind of how I feel about where the policies actually are.
Very good overview of that particular issue and all the nuances of that issue. Now, one of the things that struck me last night in the debate, while Trump began to bring up the topic of our borders, and he's been consistent about being very strong on securing the border. You can say whatever you want about Trump, but he's been consistent about that. He's said that since day one. I noticed that Hillary began to try to pump herself up. She began to say, well, I've been for border security also. And Trump mentioned to her, well, there's just been a WikiLeaks dump of emails showing from one of your paid speeches where you said you're for open borders. completely contradicting what you're saying tonight. So I want to pivot back to Dave Ejima, who's still on the show via Skype, our Republican National Committeeman. Dave, this issue of open borders and border security and Islam with the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood with this civilization jihad, how serious should the voters take this? Is that all just a bunch of conspiracy theory? And what is going on with some of our politicians on the individual level and on the party level? Do we have sympathizers for the Muslim agenda in our nation? I know that's a lot, but I'm going to hand it over to you because you can handle it.
Okay. First of all, I'm not the Republican National Committee anymore.
Oh, sorry about that.
But answer to your question is it an issue? Of course, it's a huge issue. I mean, anybody who thinks that you should have an open border and let anybody into a country, already people are going to say, well, we only have 5.5% unemployment. They're lying, because all the people that no longer qualify for unemployment aren't included, and people that have dropped out of the workforce. It's actually more closer to 9.5%. So those people take jobs from our people. And quite frankly, a lot of people who give money to various organizations like the Farm Bureau gives and Chamber of Commerce actually gives, they want that cheap labor so they can make more money. Just to get into the illegal immigration issue, what needs to happen in the state of Michigan, and I wish Clint would get on this one as rapidly as he could. Item 1, you don't give illegals driver's license. Item 2, you need to pass American law for American courts so that judges don't use foreign law in a court of law if you lose any of your constitutional rights. And you don't give welfare to illegals. What you got to do is make a situation in Michigan and in the United States where there's no incentive for illegals to be here. If they can't get welfare, they can't get college education, they can't get a driver's license, they can't get a job, they won't be here. That's number one. So I agree with Trump. A nice fence would be good, but from my experience in Korea, I can tell you right now, they went under the DMZ, they went over the DMZ, and they went through the DMZ. They'll still do that with a wall if you put it up. So you have to get rid of the incentive for them people to be here. So all the Americans out there that are listening to this, if you put Hillary in office, she's going to put more people in the United States and the state of Michigan that are going to take your jobs. And I think I was just told that every refugee that we get in the state of Michigan costs us $28,000. And over 5 years, it's about $64,000 because they're still on some kind of welfare or entitlement program for the first 5 years. This is a cost, and this is an issue that's a fiscal issue, and it's a security issue, and it's a jobs issue. So this whole thing about Hillary and the open borders, just to me, is anathema to our whole Constitution. Like I said in the earlier part of the program, a country with no borders is no longer a country. You will be taken over from within. And if you look back in 2000, I think it was 8, when they caught that individual taking a picture of the bridge, and they went into the sub-basement, and they found 80 boxes of what the Muslim Brotherhood wanted to do in the United States. And it was gradually come into the United States, get involved with government, take us over, not necessarily bombs and rockets, which is radical Islam, but civilization jihad. That's what they're doing. And if you look at it very closely, you will find that the mosques, which are Islam is about 16% religion, and the rest is how you treat an infidel, how you should live. And then you got of course, you're very familiar with that. You got the Hadith, you got the Surah, and you got the Quran. I just want to tell the Christians out there, look at the Bible. The Bible has thousands of predictions of prophecies that have come and are coming true. The Quran and Islam has none. None. And that should tell people out there, especially if you're a Muslim out there, you can be any religion you want to be in the United States. But if your religion is calling for the overthrow of our government and our Constitution, that's where it ends. And a person who claims to be a Muslim and who truly believes in the Quran, the Surah, and the Hadith, you need to ask these people a couple of pertinent questions. Item 1, can my son marry your daughter? Can your daughter date my son? If they say no, you're probably looking at a radical, because they're not supposed to do that. So there's a lot of things going on in this international business of no policy, to me, that just reeks of Hillary Clinton and Obama trying to change this country to something our forefathers did not want it to be. And we will not recognize America, in my opinion, if Hillary wins this election. She will change it into something we've never seen, and we will have judicial tyranny where the judges will then make law. And that's another point I want to make. Most people, and he's a lawyer sitting next to you there, you ought to know this. The Supreme Court makes an opinion. And people usually say there's 3 different equal branches of government. That's hogwash. That's not true. The Supreme Court can make an opinion, and Congress or the president can rebuke it. And it's been done in the past. So in my opinion, that when they did this whole thing about the homosexual marriage and so forth, they superseded their authority because that's not in the Constitution. Anything that's not in the Constitution is delegated to the states. What did the state of Michigan do? The state of Michigan voted against having homosexual marriages. Yet the Supreme Court said we had to do it because they decided. I would like to have seen our governor, I'd like to see our Congress or our legislators stand up and say, no, we're not going to abide by it, fight it. But it kind of makes it easy for them because they could say, well, they made that opinion. I would fight that. I would do everything I could to try to change that. So maybe I rambled on here a little too long, but there's a lot of things that people have got to get out of the political correctness stage, and they got to get out of the the peer pressure stage, and they got to just do what's right for the people of the state of Michigan and the United States of America. And yes, there's fear, and I brought those things, some of these things before the RNC. I wanted the 28 articles of impeachment against Obama. I couldn't even get it through the committee because Bernie Priebus didn't want it. And I put various things in to try to say if you're going to teach homosexuality and sex ed class, well, teach a balanced sex ed where you teach the negative psychological and physical aspects of the lifestyle as presented by the CDC, Oxford University, and a whole host. Well, why didn't they want to touch that? Because a lot of the politicians wanted that 2.2 or 2.7% people to vote for them. They're not going to vote for us. They're going to vote Democrat anyway. So there's a lot of peer pressure that's going on here that needs to stop, and we need some more congressmen and legislators with the guts to stop it.
Thank you very much for that insight and those words. As always, you come with lots of wisdom. Let me pivot back over to Clint. Clint, let me ask you this. For our viewers out there who are parents, who have families, America, the building block of Western civilization is the family. And we have parents out there who are worried. They have their decrees coming down telling parents that their children are now going to have to go into public bathrooms, and people can go into whatever bathroom they like depending on what gender they feel they are on that particular day. School system can't block that. They have to facilitate that. In fact, I could go on and on about the various decrees regarding gender, homosexuality in the public school system. In your view, which party platform and which candidate offers the best alternatives to parents who are people of faith and who happen to have conservative values in this election?
Thanks. It's a great question, and I'll answer it like this. The Republican platform believes in a more limited government and a government of the people. A government of the people means that you're able to control your destiny. When we send so much power to the federal government and expand on the 10th Amendment, and expand and ignore the 10th Amendment, then we're doing a disservice not only to our state, to our country, but to our future and to our children. And I say that because I wanted to set that preface, is that the Republican platform is strong on the 10th Amendment and what it means. And it's strong on the Constitution and what the Constitution means. With your First Amendment rights of speech and religion and beliefs, those beliefs shall not be infringed upon. And yet they are. Again, your Second Amendment rights, and all the way down to the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment that says, if it's not listed here, then the states shall have that right to implement any laws. And Dave Agem, a former representative, spoke a little bit about how that is happening. And that's the Republican platform. And frankly, Donald Trump has said it in many of the debates that says, well, on this issue, it would go back to the states. And on this issue, well, we would send it back to the states. And that platform of saying the states shall decide That is the platform that we should all be looking at, Republican and Democrat alike, because then it brings the power to the local authorities, to the local legislature, where you can actually reach out and touch them. You can pick up the phone and call them. You can go out to the state capitol where you live and see them. But not all of us can go to Washington to hold our congressmen accountable and our senators. And so that's number one, and that is the principle and platform of the Republican Party. Number two is, as far as conservative values and conservative religious values, they're being trounced upon, and they're being trounced upon by the left. The left that says, hey, we want to have equal opportunity for all, except if you disagree with us. Then we can't uphold your rights to speech and religion. And that's another fundamental problem that everyone, Republican and Democrat alike, that have certain traditional values should be saying, wait a minute. The Democrat philosophy and platform is saying only if we agree with them is that okay. And that's another fundamental difference between the two parties. So I think if you just look at those two things, the choice is clear. And, looking at where the conservative values are, especially with religious values, those that have religious values, whether it be regarding gay marriage or regarding this new decree in schools, they are said, the government is telling them, no, it doesn't matter what you believe. We have to tell you how you're going to believe, where you're going to believe it, and if you don't like it, go back within your own home and do whatever you want to do within your own home. But certainly don't come out and have freedom of speech, and certainly don't come out and have freedom of religion in the open. And that is the fundamental difference between the two parties. And it comes down to fairness, it comes down to the Constitution, and most importantly, it comes down to freedom, which is what our country was founded on. They didn't make freedom of religion and freedom of speech the Second Amendment or Third or Fourth or 10th or 20th. They made it the first, because it's the foremost fundamental right that we have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Those are important things to someone like myself. That's why I asked that question. I recently, for this school semester, I took my oldest child, my daughter, out of the public school system and placed her into a Christian private school where she could receive a classical Christian education, and she wouldn't be subject to the decrees that are coming from Washington about how the state had to run the public school system. That's very important to me, and I know it's very important to many of you out there. Now, back to Dave Ejima. On the same lines of the question I just gave to Clint, I heard Hillary Clinton last night say that she is for the Constitution. She believes in the Constitution. But at the same time, we see from Hillary and from many, from the whole entire, seems like the platform of the Democratic Party, some type of being against the numerous amendments of the Bill of Rights. Freedom of speech, that the federal government will not make laws establishing any religion or church. They seem to be against these things. She seems to be very against the Second Amendment, which gives us the right to bear arms. Now, we're going to go to a break because I was just told we had to go to a hard break. But when I come back, the question is going to go to you, Dave, about what I'm speaking of. Why does the Democrat Party take the stance that it has? And when Hillary says that she is for the Constitution, is she telling the truth?
She said she's for the Second Amendment.
She says she's for the Second Amendment. You just heard. So after we get done with this break, we're going to come back to Dave Ejima. He's going to answer that for us and give us some insight and wisdom. Thank you. Don't go anywhere.
For more information, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
And we are back here on the Trinity Channel. I'm your host for tonight, C.L. Edwards. We've been discussing last night's debate. We've been discussing the major issues that are up for discussion during this election. We've been discussing the principles that people of faith, specifically Christians, Bible-believing Christians, should take into account before they go into the election booth in the next coming weeks. Trying to give you a little information some principles that you can grab a hold of so you can make a sound decision. You're not just swayed emotionally by what you see in the press and in the media with all the sensational stories. Every other day there's some story, somebody groped this person, somebody did this, somebody was on the tape and said that. That's not, you don't want to make a decision based on that information. You want to make a decision based on the actual facts and reason. And like our guest Clint said, the party platforms of the two major parties, when you see those party platforms, that should make it very easy for you to decide who, as a God-fearing person, a person of faith, who you should be voting for. Now, before we went on to our hard break, I posed a question to Dave Adjama, and we want to go to him. I was basically saying that Hillary said a few times last night during the debate that she is a champion of the Constitution. She believes in the Constitution. She even specifically said that she believes in the Second Amendment. But it doesn't seem like that's the party platform of the Democratic Party. They seem to be, in some ways, very against our constitutional rights. Could you fill us in and educate us on that particular topic, Dave?
I don't educate you that much on it, but I want to go back to what Clint said. He was correct. If a Christian wants to really look at the platforms, read them. Read the Democratic platform, which is really a bunch of groups, and then read the Republican platform, which, by the way, just got about 30% more conservative. Our platform is written by the grassroots. They get together, we elect people, they go there. We're now more conservative. When I was at the RNC, these are some of the issues I dealt with. I put the 5 core principles in. Just a couple, 3 of those where we believe in the sanctity of life. We're against abortion. We believe in hardcore Second Amendment shall not be infringed. And we believe in marriage between a man and a woman. So, I mean, those are 5 core principles I got passed with 100% unanimity. There's 2 more, but I didn't mention them. Another thing is I think Hillary wants to change the Constitution to what she wants to make it. And she's going to do that by judicial fiat, or she'll do it by executive orders. Quite frankly, I think what Obama's done with all his executive orders is against the Constitution. Technically, maybe Clint can give me some more information on this, but I believe executive orders are really meant when Congress wasn't in session, then if some emergency popped up, he could make an executive order. But he's not using it for that. He's just using it to do whatever he wills, and he's running over our Constitution. I do not believe Hillary Clinton loves our Constitution. I think our forefathers would be embarrassed with what she says and what she has done. Our forefathers, aside from the Bible, I think when they wrote that Constitution, is one of the finest documents you're ever going to want to read. And they knew exactly what they were talking about. They knew exactly what it meant. Unfortunately, Hillary wants to make that say something different from what they recognize what it meant. Example, Hillary says freedom of worship. You hear it all the time, freedom of worship. No, it's not freedom of worship, it's freedom of religion. Why does she say that? Because she wants to compartmentalize your faith in your church or your synagogue. But when you get out, don't say anything bad about anybody, because we have hate crime laws and we're going to sue you and throw you in jail. So that's why she says freedom of worship rather than freedom of religion. So if Christians look at all this, all the data that you have on both sides, and see what Hillary Clinton has been for and against, this is kind of black and white. And I actually made a list, and I guess this is a good time as any to put my glasses on so I can read it. Every one of the things I'm going to read that Trump said is absolutely opposite of what Hillary believes. So Trump's going to appoint conservative Supreme Court justices. Hillary's not going to do that. Trump wants to destroy radical Islam terrorism. Hillary's not going to do that. Trump wants to secure our country's borders. Hillary wants open borders. Trump wants to restore law and order and respect for authority. You don't hear that from Hillary. Now we're finding out that some of her people are actually causing the problems. Trump wants to negotiate fair trade deals. I agree. NAFTA was a bad deal. TPP is a bad deal. Hillary's going to support all those. Trump wanted lower taxes on the middle class. Hillary will raise your taxes, because Democrats always do. Trump wants to repeal and replace Obamacare. What does Hillary want to do? She wants to keep it, refine it, hogwash. She's going to keep it just like Obama wanted. And it's going to fall apart on its own because it can't sustain itself. Trump wants to bring American jobs back from overseas. I already mentioned TPP and NAFTA. She'll support those. Make American energy independent. I've been saying that for years. We could be if we just put our our hearts and minds into this and put as much money into that as we do some other things, we could be independent, and we should have more nuclear power plants. That's one thing when I was a state rep, I was trying to get in to the state. Trump wants to get rid of political correctness. I think he exemplifies getting rid of political correctness. And he wants to protect the Second Amendment, which is big for me. Anybody who wants to take my gun is going to have to force it from my hands, because 56 million people have been killed by their own government once they took their weapons away. Never give up your weapon, and our forefathers knew that. Trump wants to balance our federal budget because they spend too much. Obama has spent, and Hillary administration has spent now $20 trillion, growing every day. That's more than all the other presidents prior to him combined. That's what Obama has done to keep a false economy going. Trump said he preserves Social Security. And by the way, Social Security is not an entitlement. You have paid for that your whole life. Entitlements are welfare programs and chip cards and so forth. Trump said he repealed the Johnson Amendment, which basically he puts kind of a threat on churches that they speak out about politics. That's a bad thing, and he'll try to take your 501c3s away. Trump said he wants to bring education back to the state, just like Clint said. That's a good idea. He wants to abolish Common Core. Great idea. He says he wants to take care of the veterans. Great idea. All of these things, Hillary has either ruined or done the opposite. So to me, it's clear. Now, will Trump do all these things? We have a platform. He said he would do these. Now all our job is to elect him and hold his feet to the fire. And just like I say with the state representatives that are in the state, if they said X, Y, they're going to do X, and they get in and they do Y, then get rid of them in 4 years. But so far, the difference between the two is diametrically opposed, completely opposite. So vote Trump.
Well, let's just look at three things as well. So we don't even need to go through all the amendments in the Constitution, and we can, and make an analysis. But there's three things: life, liberty, and property. And property, it's the pursuit of happiness, because when you have that, it's the happiness. But let's look at life, and whether or not who you vote for in this election. Mm-hmm. Who is protecting life? Number one thing, life. Life. Well, life is only important for Hillary if it's after birth. Well, what about the life in the womb? Mm-hmm. And then she said, no, wait a minute. I actually would protect life, and these choices are difficult. Yes, they are very difficult. However, a life is a life is a life. Whether it's your faith of at conception, like mine, whether it's your faith of in the womb, like many Christians, whether it's out of the womb and now you see this child, whether it's a senior citizen or an elder who's ill, a life is a life is a life. And if you look at the two platforms, they're completely opposite. On the one hand, the one party that supports Hillary Clinton, they say you can have abortions up until a day before the birth. And then they talk about euthanizing those who maybe are elderly or seniors. You look at liberty in terms of freedom. Well, we already discussed that. Your freedom to your beliefs, your freedom to do certain things like maybe own property, right? Not with the current administration. Your freedom to bear arms, as Mr. Ajima said. There was a case out in Oregon. People were farming on property, cattle farmers. Who was the group that came that was opposed to them? The federal government, folks. It was the federal government. And what do they want to do? What do the Hillary Clinton, those that support her, say? Well, these guns are so bad that we need to take them away from you. Why? Maybe to take away your freedoms. Maybe to later take away your property. And if you look at all the violence, the gun violence that we've had, and it's terrible and it's tragic, and we need to really focus on the real issues of preventing violence. In all of those areas, in most of those areas, their gun regulations are off the charts. They're more regulated than in other areas. And when we have the three branches of government that we talk about, if you give the authority to one branch of government, then we have what we have today. The federal government has run amok. They're taking away people's liberties. They're taking away your property. They're taking away life. And it's because we don't have this balance of power, whether it be in the judiciary that now has gone really far to the left because of the appointments. And now we have our executive branch with all the executive orders. And we've sent so much power to the federal government in our legislative branch that now there is a complete shift in terms of the balance. And it's not what the founding fathers had. And we'd never hear about these things because of such a biased media that's out there. It's fortunate that you have such great listeners listening to real facts and looking at things from an objective standard. However, when you have this video of Donald Trump saying these despicable things about women and what have you, and I don't condone that or agree with it, it gets blasted everywhere. But when you see the leaked emails that no one can refute or defend because they're so wrong, we don't see them on the mainstream media. When you look at this, you can YouTube rigged elections, and you see this undercover work about how fights were caused at the Donald Trump rallies, and how there was corroboration between multiple groups, including Hillary Clinton and the DNC. No one talks about that. Mm-hmm. And we, as citizens of this great country, have the ability to hold accountable our politicians, our president in this upcoming election. We can even hold the media accountable by saying, wait, even though you fed us this biased information, we really know the truth. And we will support life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this upcoming election by who we elect and who we vote for.
Thank you very much. Now we're coming up on a hard break. Before we go, you won't be with us for the last segment. In less than a minute, could you just tell your goodbyes to the audience and leave us with a final word?
Thank you very much. First off, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. And I know I'm a state representative here in the great state of Michigan, but this election is a very important one. It's an important one for everyone across our whole country. It's important for our children. It's important for our future, where our debt is going, where our budget should be balanced and it's not, where three fundamental principles of life, liberty, and happiness have slowly deteriorated as the years have gone by. This is an opportunity for us to capture those liberties back, to capture those principles back. Republican or Democrat alike, we should be thinking about the future. We should be thinking about who our candidate for president should be. And we should not be looking at just what the biased media says, but really the fundamental principles and philosophies and the platforms of how you can protect your life, how you can achieve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I hope this upcoming election you vote for the conservative candidates. I hope you vote for those that have values that you share. I hope in this upcoming election you vote for Republicans. And really, let's protect our country. Let's protect our Supreme Court. Let's bring our government back to the people. And I look forward to be with you again. Thank you, and thank you again, and thank you, Dave Agema, for being on as well.
We thank you for appearing here in the studio with us. You've added to the show, and you've added to the wealth of knowledge that we've expressed here tonight to our audience to equip them to be able to make this very important election decision. Now we're going to take a hard break, but the show is not over. We're going to continue. We're going to pick it up after the break, and we're going to squeeze in as many issues as we can possibly squeeze in and to get deep into them like you will never see on the mainstream media here on the Trinity channel. I'm your host tonight, C.L. Edwards. See you in a few minutes at the other side of the break. Good evening. Welcome to the final segment of the show. You're viewing the Trinity channel. I'm your host tonight, C.L. Edwards, and we have been discussing politics, religion, life, family, life in the womb, all different types of issues that are important for the upcoming present-day American election. And we're giving tools, we're giving knowledge, we're giving information, raw and uncut, without all the extra stuff. We're giving it to you so you can make the perfect and best decision that you can live with in front of your Creator and with your conscience as a human being. Now, back on the set, we have with us Darwin Giles from earlier in the segment, and we still have via Skype Dave Ejima. And I want to ask our in-studio guests, Darwin, now, I'm a Black American, you're Black American. I want you to say something to Black Americans at this moment. Now, a lot of people I know in our community hold very conservative values and ideas. They're not for everything that the Democratic Party pushes. They don't agree with it. And religion is very important. Faith is very important in the Black community.
Correct.
No matter if it's in the inner city or it's in the suburbs. Why would anyone vote against their own conscience, their own principles, and their own morals to vote for a candidate or a party platform that contradicts that? Should they be doing that?
Yeah, Dave Ejima says it's for the money. In many cases, that's absolutely right. When you look at black pastors, it has a lot to do with the money. And also it's political power. So you can even look at, let's say, some of the celebrities, okay? Let's use Russell Simmons, who comes into Flint during a water crisis that Democrats helped push and were a part of the cause. Now, Republicans had a part to play, but they both did. Again, my hometown is Flint, Michigan. Russell Simmons tried to push a rush card, which is his own business entity, to collect donations for the water. I get it. But exploiting a crisis is what that really looks like. And the fact that he's supporting Hillary Clinton, who also exploited this problem. Let's also look at a positive statement of Sean Puffy Combs, you know, P. Diddy, bad boy. He said this: black people are shorted. We were shortchanged big time with President Obama. Because when we look at 8 years of President Obama, what do we have? In fact, I had a person from Flint. She's an activist. She's a pharmacist. She went to, just graduated from pharmacy school. She went to, I believe, Howard University. And she was criticizing Trump's. And I dare he talk about us like this. You even had Tyler Perry on The View talking about how Trump said some things inappropriately about African Americans. But when you look at President Obama, where he came from after 8 years, how does Chicago look? Now, I'm from the inner city. I'm from the hood. I have people that are gangster disciples in Chicago, okay? This is a black issue. Obama did not and has not addressed those issues. We are highly shortchanged. The Democratic Party has used us in the black communities, and even in the words of Tavis Smiley, for years we voted Democratic, Democratic, Democratic. Those Republicans are evil, which some of them may be. But at the same time, what is more evil? Voting for someone for 60 years and you look around and your houses are still burned up, rented, insurance rates are out of control, security and public policy is out of control, socialism is on the rise, small business being open are like non-existent, school closings, so many other things, okay, that I could go on and on about our alliance to the Democratic Party. In fact, a good pastor friend, John Denson, said, we have a blind loyalty to the Democratic Party. So Tavis Smiley has pointed this out. Sean P. Diddy Combs has pointed this out. And I'm saying, as the ethnic vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party, we have for too long put all our eggs in one basket. And all of the black gatekeepers go out and they with a whip, and they get the blind sheep to just go in a direction, and they push the herd to the polls. But what do we get in return? I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. We should be more diverse. We should make sure we hold our political power to be very sacred in the sense of making sure that we get the benefit, that if we're going to vote for values, that it should represent our conservative values. That we shouldn't have to be prostituted as a people and give our alliance to something we don't even truly agree with, and that does not further our cause. So back to this activist in Flint, Michigan, who graduated from pharmacy school, who went to Howard University. I dare Trump speak out against African Americans. Well, yes, you graduated from Howard, and you're a rarity. I am a rarity as well. 3 business degrees, MBA, but I am so rare in my community. And our success as individuals mean nothing collectively if our body of people, if schools are closed, pregnancy, unwed pregnancy are up, STDs are just out of control, abortion is out of control. As Dave Ejima stated, we abort more children, black, than we actually have. So when you talk about systemic poverty, systemic racism, I think the Democratic Party, based on what they produce, has helped more affected us than what Republicans has did. And that's just the truth. Okay, 60 years of running the inner cities, what do we have to show for it? And I believe in personal responsibility. I think we should be able to fix our own community and the power of the might of the Lord, even without their necessarily influence and us depending on them. But if we're going to vote for them, if we're going to claim that D with a blind loyalty, then, as the scripture says, the blind leads to blind in a ditch. And it's no wonder why we're off the cliff. People are voting for Hillary Clinton or choosing to for no real apparent reason. They have no clue of what they're doing. And that's just the truth. And it's time we get out of that ignorance, that foolishness, and we challenge things. I mean, one day I would like to really give my testimony of how I even became a Republican, how I even have had to hold my own party accountable to the platform, because as Clint Custo, who just left off, many people claim conservatism, but very few actually vote that way. And this is a big problem. And I want Dave Ejima to even elaborate on that. What is the issue with Republicans in name only? We call them rhinos. Can you explain that?
Dave?
Sure. They're the people that get in office. Like I said before, they say they're going to do X. When they get in there through the money, give tax, and individuals, they do Y. And then they expect people to vote for them and elect them again in the next election, even though they did what they said they were going to do. And when I put my fingers up like the Darwin before, it's about money. That's why I've been for a long time for a part-time legislature. I think we don't need full-time legislators in the state of Michigan. The only thing required by the Constitution of the state of Michigan is a budget, and you only have about 25% of the people working on the budget, and the rest of them are working on new taxes, laws, fines, and fees. And when Clint was talking here, he was talking about life, liberty, and owning property. But for the state of Michigan, for example, 22% of this state is owned by federal or state government. What's the deal with that? How come we don't stop that? Government only has one propensity, and that's to increase in size and expenditure. So they need to be dealing with this right home here in Michigan as well. Too much of Michigan is owned. The UP has so much land owned by the government, they have no tax base. So their schools are sucking wind. Getting back to that Second Amendment, I just got to hit something on that. When we were fighting the Japanese were actually thinking of invading California coast. And when they found out that Americans had guns, every household had a gun, they didn't do it because they said, we're going to have a battle from the West Coast to the East Coast. So, and another thing that's going on in Michigan, I think people got to understand how Hillary's trying to steal the election. She's promised to give free college education. Well, nothing's free. Somebody's got to pay for it, and that's you and I. And to a youth, that sounds like a really good idea. So what she's doing now is she's going into the colleges, and they're signing up people to vote, primarily college students are the new registrars. The registrars, they're putting them in the voting. So what are they going to do? They're going to vote for who gives them something for free. And then in about 10 years when they get a job, that's still going to be going on. And suddenly they're going to realize, man, I'm paying a lot of my money in taxes. So if Jesus Christ he didn't really say 10%, but if it's good, 10% is good enough for him, it's probably good enough for our government. They ought to live by it. So what is a rhino? It's a Republican in name only. He claims to be what he's not. And when he gets there, he pads his own pocket. And that goes on a lot. I can tell you a lot of people that have gotten the best legislators in Lansing are the ones that have the smallest amount in their committee to elect. Why? Because they didn't do what they were told to do, and they didn't vote the way the lobbyists told them to vote. The ones that have $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in a committee to elect have been bought and sold, guaranteed. So, folks, be careful. And that doesn't go over very well in the Republican Party, but I tell them, you have primaries for a reason. Just because that guy owns that seat doesn't mean, or is in that seat, doesn't mean he owns that seat. If he's doing stuff he shouldn't do and voting the wrong way, like a rhino votes, get rid of him. Get somebody else in that office. It sends a message to everybody else. We're not going to put up with this. We want good people in office. Darwin's exactly right. He's right on board, and I applaud him for what he's doing.
And you also have to understand that because you have individuals who are bought and sold basically on a political market, so to speak, this is why Trump is so important to vote for. Because Trump, again, is self-sufficient. Nobody's perfect. But if he has his own, he doesn't have to answer to lobbyists. He doesn't have to. And he's gained his own movement respectfully. He's done things I haven't seen any politician do rightfully for outreach. I mean, the guy actually came to my hometown of Flint, Michigan, and actually was disrespected. I was very, very upset at how they treated Donald Trump in Flint, Michigan. But the problem is, too many are bought and sold. I mean, I honestly agree with that. Even for this position I hold now, there was an individual before I got in this position who was accused of window dressing. Why would any political organization need to use any ethnic group just for window dressing? Either you're for the cause of outreach or you're not. Either you're going to live by the platform or you need to do something different. But I've been an activist, very active over the last 10 years of my life for some very serious reasons, being that my family has been affected by this, being that my father was a victim of a homicide in 2008. I mean, I can name serious reasons on why I do what I do, far beyond money, far beyond anything that will even stop me. This is part of what my calling is to do. But when I see individuals bought and sold, when I see individuals who claim to be Republicans and our platform is correct, the people in the inner city need to see our platform values acted out. Just having a piece of paper and saying this is our platform, that's not enough. So the great thing about our platform and holding our leadership accountable is that as the people in America, this is great about our republic, is that we can hold people accountable and get rid of them if they don't do as according to the values, our Constitution, as according to our platform. And for too long, especially in Michigan, that's become an issue. So we have to do better. We have to do better, and we have to stand up for something.
Thank you very much. We've got a little time left. We're coming to a head. Let me just put this out here as a question. Now, Hillary said that she is for the Second Amendment. She used the example of toddlers who get a hold of guns that aren't locked away, and they make a mistake, they shoot themselves and they kill themselves. And she could pass federal legislation to mandate that guns be locked away. If she could put more regulation on gun owners, that could save the lives of so many young people. Should the American people buy into that type of rhetoric? Even in the inner city, we know here in the biggest city in Michigan, Detroit, which is one of the most violent cities in the United States of America, over a few weeks we've seen all types of gun violence. A 13-year-old last week was gunned down in the middle of the street on the west side with an AK-47. Wouldn't Hillary solve things like that by creating more legislation and more regulation on the gun owners? Wouldn't she solve the problem of homicides and gun violence? Should people buy into that type of talk? I'm shoot that to Dave Ejima.
Absolutely not. I mean, you're looking at you're in a former military officer, fighter pilot. I didn't buy a gun to protect myself to have a lock on it so the guy can come in and shoot me before I get the lock on. And if you want to go a little bit deeper than that, I have taught all my grandkids how to shoot. I've taken my granddaughter, 8-year-old granddaughter, to New Zealand to hunt tar, and she shot one at 360 yards with a 7mm mag. I tell people, because I'm on the CARES hit list, number 16 hit list, a quasi-hit list, if you will, I've got a gun and I carry it, and I do. I carried it when I was a state rep on the House floor. I walked into the governor's office when he signed one of my first bills, and I had a .50 caliber shell made into a pin. And I said, here, you got to bite the bullet and sign a good bill once in a while. And I gave him the pen. So that's crazy. I mean, look at Chicago. They got the strongest, most strict gun control. And you got more people dying there than you got in the Middle East. I mean, it's crazy. You can make a law, all the laws you want to. The bad guys aren't going to abide by them. So I want the gun. I want the gun in my hand. And I want the bad guy to know I'm going to use that gun. And I'd love to have a judge just once say, you know, folks, I expect you to defend yourself, and please solve the problem for us. When you shoot, finish the job so we don't have to go through the court system. Boy, would I love to hear that from a judge. Guns are important.
And I would like to add, too, because Dave Vision mentioned a very good point. Mm-hmm. We do need more advocacy and gun safety in the inner cities, because a lot of where there's video games, whether it's through movies, we have desensitized the real damage that a weapon can have, the real damaging effect. So we need to make sure that, especially African Americans within the inner city concerning the Second Amendment, we have to do better with training up a generation and understand the seriousness of firearms, the safety, and our rights concerning them.
Very good points, gentlemen. Very good points. I just wanted to bring that up because I found that somewhat fork-tongued on Hillary Clinton's point, where on one side you're saying, I'm for the Second Amendment, I'm a champion of the Second Amendment, but you're also saying, I want to put a lot of regulations and a lot of laws on gun owners so I can and justify it by saying, well, I'm going to stop toddlers from shooting themselves if you allow me to get into the office and do these types of things. A lot of information to chew on, a lot of information to think about that we have given you tonight. I think we may not have talked about everything possible there could be to talk about, but we have talked about a lot of things in this show, and we didn't just scratch on a surface level. We got really deep into a lot of these things. And I would dare to say all the major issues of this presidential campaign in America, we were able to touch and get deep into. Based on this information, the audience, whether you're viewing us live or whether you're viewing us later on YouTube or some other medium online or anywhere else, you've got to take this information, you've got to digest it, you got to think about it. You need to be a good Berean, check some of this stuff out for yourself. We're online. We've got a worldwide library at your fingertips. It's more than just Kim Kardashian videos. You can get some information that can help you, your family, and your community. You need to check this out, verify it for yourself. Look at these candidates and what they said, what they stand for. Look at the parties, their platforms, what they stand for, what they don't stand for. What is valuable to you? What do you believe in? What are your principles? Don't vote against your principles as a person of faith and a person of belief.
Amen.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank every single guest that was here on the show or via Skype. And we will be back another day to discuss another topic. Good night.